All right, everyone, welcome to the annual end of year awards, inaugural first one of the Sanabul Fight Buzz podcast. I'm here with Christian Howes, as all of you know, and we're going to be going through our personal awards and comparing them and seeing which one you guys agree with the most. First one that we're going to go through is our breakthrough fighter of the year. So this is kind of like a rookie of the year, or just kind of whoever you think just stood out the most as just showing themselves for the first time kind of thing. So, I mean, I'll go first. Mine was Diego Lopez. So Diego Lopez this year had his UFC debut against Movsar Evloev, who I believe was ranked at least top 10, maybe even top 5 in that division. And yeah, I mean, nobody really expected him to do what he did against Movsar. It was his debut. Not many people knew who he was. He had this maybe kind of silly little haircut, some people thought, and they were just like, who is this guy? And he put on a real show against Movsar Evloev, and he stood out. I'm sure he got a bonus for that. Probably one of the fights of the night. And then he submitted Gavin Tucker later on this year, and then just recently TKO'd Pat Sabatini. I mean, I couldn't find anyone I personally thought was better than this. This was definitely an awesome year for Diego, and there's big things from him in that featherweight division.
Yeah, you really hit it on the head with his hair. That's for sure. I mean, it almost looks like a custom character from like a Tony Hawk skateboard game or something. Like they just pasted it on there. But no, you're absolutely right. This guy's burst onto the scene, and I think we're going to see some big stuff from him moving forward for sure.
Yeah, it'll be sweet. I love him, and he's a super exciting fighter. He always looks for that finish, and it's super exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I went not traditionally with like someone who had their debut this year, but just someone who I thought truly broke through in the year, and my pick was Ian Gary. I know it's probably like I said, he's a guy who comes into the company with a little more hype than most guys do and things like that. And it wasn't his first year, but just considering the year he had and the jump for talent and the guys he was fighting, like he fought 3 times this year, which is also something that I hold really heavy when I look at these annual awards, because there's so many guys that are talented in the UFC. So you got to pick guys, in my opinion, who fight, they give us a lot to judge. So a guy like Ian, he had, 3 fights in the year with Daniel Rodriguez, Son Karen, and then Neil Magny. And I mean, he put on great performances. His star power shot through the roof. I just thought he truly broke through into the UFC's like stardom this year, which was a big thing for me. I think we got to see a lot of good things from him.
Yeah, for sure. What you said, like, really made sense about the activity part, because going through these awards, there was a lot of guys who I wanted to pick, but they maybe just had 1 or 2 fights, and it was like, I can't really judge much from that. Sure, it was maybe a great performance, but I can't really give you male fighter of the year if you only fought once, right?
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. And I mean, we almost saw Ian fight a 4th time if it wouldn't have fallen under that Vicente Luque fight, like, which would have been crazy for a guy who's 2 years, second year in the UFC, I believe. I think he debuted in 22.
Yeah, he's super active for sure.
Yeah, no, I thought it was Ian Gary for sure. I also had, again, not a guy who debuted, but a guy who really broke through was Dricus du Plessis. I thought he had a big year, broke into the scene. I mean, you got to give him a lot of credit for that Robert Whittaker fight, but now we're talking about a guy who's fighting for a title. Like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see more out of Ian Gary. Hopefully he can really shine through, especially in this Jeff Neal fight, and then Dricus too in that Sean Strickland fight. It looks like he's ready to go, and that's going to be a crazy fight. Sean's looking even more jacked than ever, and super in shape. So I'm really excited for both of those guys too.
Yeah, I saw that. I wonder if Sean's like, I don't know if it's like the belt just turned him into like a confidence boost. Probably like, wow, I'm the best middleweight on the planet right now. Like, this is just like a newfound confidence, which would be cool. I wonder if it changes his fighting style or if he just gets way better from the belt. Who knows, right?
Yeah, it seems like he's going through a lot of like personal changes too. Like, obviously he's still got the same I'll say whatever I want kind of thing, but like I saw he went on that Theo Von podcast, and I guess he was like crying, and he got like some emotional like he realized a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure just this jump into fame and a lot of people kind of saying different things to him kind of helped him realize some different stuff, and just maybe changing his lifestyle and how he lives. He also got a Tesla, which is a big change for him too.
It's huge. That's probably why he's in such good shape.
Exactly. All right. Well, speaking of Sean Strickland, not to give it away, but most entertaining fighter of the year. My pick was Sean Strickland. I mean, there's Not many. There is a lot of guys to give this to. But in my opinion, the first one that jumped out was Sean Strickland. 3-0 this year. He beat Nasruddin Imavov, Magomedov, and then Israel Adesanya as well. Obviously in that beatdown of Izzy. So I mean, Sean Strickland, entertaining in and out of the octagon. He has that fighting style where he's always in your face and he's always talking. Maybe not in some fights anymore, but I mean, his fights are entertaining. He's a stand-up fighter. He doesn't want to go to the ground, and he likes to talk outside the octagon. So he's always super entertaining. So I got him as my most entertaining fighter of the year.
That's a really good point. I guess when you look at this category, you do have to consider in and out of the octagon, because I personally went with Alex Bejeda. I thought that even though he didn't win every single fight of the year, and I told, not to take away from your point with Sean Strickland, that he had a fantastic year, and he's all over these lists for everybody. I think it's hard to ignore a guy like Sean Strickland in a year like this. But just with Poatan, I thought that when you look at all of his fights for the year, Jan Blachowicz, Israel, and all the questions that come with every single fight, like there was nothing definite about his year. Like his trilogy with Adesanya, it was like, or whichever fight that was, I think it was their third fight. It was like, what's going to happen here? Even though he lost, it was like still one of the most entertaining fights we saw all year. And then he goes up against Jan, and everyone's thinking, oh, what's going to happen when he goes up against this larger guy who can clearly out-wrestle him? What's going to happen? And then he gets it done via decision. And then it gets Yuri, and it's like, oh, we have this guy who's so unorthodox and such a good striker, and he's huge. And like, I just felt like every time Alex was fighting, it was like we were all tuning in, and it was a great 100%. Fight. Like the guy hasn't had a boring fight in the UFC yet, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And even out of the octagon, I think some people underestimate how funny Alex is. Like, I think he really takes a hold of that persona that everyone kind of sees him as, where he doesn't have any emotion, and he plays to that and kind of makes it funny. But yeah, I mean, I love Alex, and he's a super fun fighter to watch. And obviously everyone gets so excited to see him fight. Like that thing he posted, the 30 plus 300 equals 30 or whatever. Nobody knows what that means. Everyone's trying to figure it out. Some people think maybe he's fighting Tom Aspinall for the triple champ. I mean, yeah, it's super. Everyone's always thinking, what's Alex going to do next? Because he can do anything. Like, he's just someone that nobody can say you can't do that.
That's what I mean, too. I mean, you were talking about a guy who's got 3 possible divisions that he can fight in, which is insane. And that's another good point about that post. He posts something on Instagram, and the entire MMA community just blows up and goes wild over the possibilities. And this guy can barely even speak English, and we're always talking to him because how entertaining he is as a fighter. Like, I think it was hard not to pick him. Another guy I did have on my list was Sugar Sean, and I know he only fought once in 23, but it was more about him. It's more about outside of the octagon and his star power, and like he goes, he was at that mock-up press conference thing they had the other day, and he's got some one-liners here, and then to have the performance he did against Aljo, it's like, how do you deny Sean as being, doesn't matter what he does, just the most 100%. Entertaining guy in the sport?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's, if he fought more, I'm sure we would have him higher up that list for sure. And he is entertaining in and out on his Instagram, on his social media and everything. So yeah, he would definitely be up there on the list for sure. All right, sweet. So next one we're going to go into is our female fighter of the year. So I went a different route here. I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have this as their first pick. I don't know if I'm a little biased. I've trained with her before. She is also Canadian, and I'm Canadian, but it was hard for me to find. I think it's impossible. I don't know 100%, but I think it's impossible to find someone that was 3-0 this year in a female division. I know there was a bunch that were 2-1. I couldn't find someone that was 3-0. Obviously, my runner-up was Alexa Grasso. It was hard to give it to her just because she was 1-0-1, so she only had one win. My pick was Jasmine Jasudavicius. She was 2-1 this year. She had a dominant win over Miranda Maverick, and this was like a big win for her because she had some tough times earlier in her career. And it was like kind of questionable and up in the air about how good she was. And then she really worked on that wrestling. And then she showed that against Miranda Maverick, stuff in the head, defending the takedowns, getting on top, super vicious. And then she had another win against Gabriela Fernandez. And then she had a war against Tracy Cortez, which was a super fun fight. She did lose that decision to Tracy, but she's super active, and she's also really important on this Canadian UFC 297 card. And yeah, I mean, she's a lot of the Canadians like her, and I'm super excited to see what she does next. But yeah, that's going to be my pick for a female fight of the year.
Absolutely, that's great. And yeah, you got to cheer for them Canadian girls, right? We got to support local for sure.
Exactly.
I feel like her fight with Tracy Cortez definitely, like, there's certain fighters that when you, even just fighting with them, even if you lose, it helps to boost your star power. So I feel like Tracy Cortez is one of those women. So
100%.
Even though it was a decision loss, it definitely does things for her career that way. But I'm excited to see what she does at 297 as well.
Yeah.
I did probably go with what you would expect in the Alexa Grasso. I just thought, and even though you're right, she went 1-0-1. I think the biggest, obviously the upset submission victory over Valentina is a big deal, but I think it's more the magnitude of the fact that, which speaks volumes to Valentina's level, because that's why I picked Alexa. Because both of her, even though it was a draw against Valentina in the second fight, it's like a win and a draw over Valentina Shevchenko are unbelievable accolades in the 100%. sport. So I had to give it to Alexa, absolutely. But I actually had Amanda Nunes as my runner-up just to show, respect to her GOAT level career she had as a female MMA fighter. So those two are my picks.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's hard to tell right now just because of both of those last two fights were against Alexa. It's hard to tell if Valentina is still Valentina or if Alexa's just that good.
Yeah, I guess we'll know in the next fight for Valentina and see, because, at some point or another, they all start to fall off, right? It's kind of a tough one. So, yeah, definitely. We'll see what happens next for Valentina.
And then for the male fighter of the year, one of your picks that you already took, I have Alex Pereira. So, I mean, obviously all the points that you already listed, just massive things. Obviously, there's the record difference. There's the loss on the record. There's obviously, I'm sure there were some male fighters who went 3-0 this year. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. And I think it's just the magnitude of what he did, moving up that weight class. The loss to Izzy is tough. I wish that win from Izzy transferred over from last year to this year, because that would make him that 3-1, and that would kind of cancel out that loss to Izzy. But I think the loss to Izzy was a tough one. He was putting it on him. He was doing really well. And those weight cuts are so tough. It's just, there's so many different variables. And then having Izzy lose to Sean Strickland kind of just makes that loss to him just a little, softens it a little for me. And then moving up in that weight class and doing what he did kind of shows that maybe that's his home weight class, and doing that in a newer sport to someone, and just being dominant against Jan and Prochazka is just honestly just a big feat for me. And I'm super excited to see what he does next. I think he showed, stood out more than anyone else for me.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like I mentioned before, he's just so exciting to watch, and everything he's doing. You can't even fault him for that loss over Adesanya.
Exactly.
Everyone was cheering for Adesanya to try and get that out. But it's, I totally agree. I can absolutely understand why you'd put Alex in that position. He had a fantastic year, and I hope, honestly, I hope we get to watch him fight for 5 more years.
Me too.
He's so entertaining. But in similar fashion to Alexa Grasso, actually, a lot of the reason why I gave this one to Islam Makhachev was that his wins over Volkanovski. And I got to play, I guess, devil's advocate to my own choice. I know Volk took the second fight on short notice where he was KO'd. But we have to give credit where it's due. It's still Alexander Volkanovski, a guy that nobody, in his division has really given him much problems with for the last few years. I mean, there was that great fight with Ortega, but we're talking about a guy who beat Alexander Volkanovski twice in the same year. So I had to give the Islam. We haven't seen much from the. I guess we had that the Charles fight in 2022, and then 2 fights against Volkanovski in 23. Just that's how much respect I give to Volk. That I thought if some guy can beat him twice in the same year, it's hard not to give him Fighter of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, For sure. I think Islam's definitely like stands out as someone who you can see as almost unbeatable right now. Other than that first fight against Volk, but Volk's a different animal. Like it's hard to like if someone takes him to a decision and wins, it's hard to fault that person at all. Even if he's moving up a weight class or whatever the case may be, it's still massive and yeah, I mean, nobody's really on Volk's level when it comes to cardio and wrestling and grappling and just an overall MMA game, which he showed against Islam in that first fight for sure.
Yeah, and you could see like if Islam they would have went 5 rounds, and maybe in like the third, Volk started to gas, and then Islam kind of put it on him and just bodied him for the last 2 rounds, and you'd be like, well, Volk didn't have a full camp, and then you'd really start to play that, but like a first round KO,
it didn't even come into play.
Yeah, like it's pretty hard to dispute that. Like I'm sure Volk was obviously still training. He made weight the whole bit. He didn't look unreasonable going into the fight. But my only caveat for Islam is that I know he's talked about going up to fight Leon, but I would like to see him just stick around lightweight for a little while, take on some of these guys. There's so many names, right? Like there's so many guys there you want to see him fight. But I did have Leon as the runner-up for Male Fighter of the Year.
Yep.
My only issue with that was I thought that Colby's... This is the crazy thing. Colby's performance against Leon, being not what we expected, actually took away from Leon's year, in my opinion. Like, yes, he had a great decision over Kamaru, but... And I mean, we've kind of run off that high of the head kick, which was technically 2022. So Leon's been in a fantastic stretch. But if you just look at the year of 2023, he had the decision over Kamaru, which is great. Since then, we've seen Kamaru lose to Hamza, which again takes credit away from Leon. And then you have Colby show up and not really show up. And then again, I find even though on paper you have 2 wins against 2 of the best welterweights that we've had in the last 5 years, something about it doesn't give him the fighter of the year to me. I still have to give it someone else, as crazy as that sounds.
I think it almost even makes it hard because of how dominant he is. It makes it hard to like give him what's due because you're kind of blaming the other guy instead of giving the props to maybe the guy who deserves it. Like, for example, Volk, like in his reign at featherweight, a lot of people were kind of just taking the side of like there's not enough competition at featherweight instead of saying a lot of people were saying how dominant Volk is, obviously, but a lot of people were also saying maybe like the competition isn't good enough at featherweight, and maybe that's why Volk moved up because he's like, this is too easy. But I think you can't take away from the fact that maybe the reason Colby had such a poor performance was because of the confusion that Leon was giving him and the hard looks and the fear that Leon has so many different weapons. So it's hard to match that. Yeah,
absolutely. That's a really good point. And yeah, Leon's fantastic. I think it's gonna be hard to beat a guy like that. He really is on top of that division.
Yeah, he's dialed in. All right. Next up, we have upset of the year. This is going to be a fun one. This was a kind of hard one to look at, but then when I found this, like when I was thinking of this fight, I kind of picked it right away. But my pick for this is going to be Dricus du Plessis beating Robert Whittaker. So this one was like, I don't know if many people were expecting this. I was not expecting this. I had Robert Whittaker 100% in my books. I thought Robert was going to dominate this performance. I thought Dricus was going to gas in like the second or third round, and then it was just going to be easy for Rob. But Dricus put on a massive performance, and he showed why he deserves this title shot. Yeah, I mean, Dricus is definitely someone that is on everyone's radar now for sure, and that was mostly due to that Robert Whittaker fight for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. He was one of the guys on my list as well. That fight with Robert Whittaker. If you look over the last 5 years, if Israel Adesanya had never been born, we would probably be talking about Robert Whittaker on a 5-year championship streak. Like that's how good he's been. He's been unbelievable. The guy. Anytime you talk about the division, it's like Adesanya, Whittaker. He just can't. It just feels like, the only person you couldn't beat in the world was Adesanya. So when, Dricus came up, I thought the same thing. I thought, he's going to get dismantled by Robert Whittaker. Another contender shot down by the gatekeeper that is Robert Whittaker, right?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. I had him on there as well. And I also had Sean versus Aljo as the upset of the year.
Just because that was a good one.
the odds and how insane Aljo was when he was on top. Like I don't think very many people from an odds maker's perspective were expecting Sugar to come in there and get it done, especially in the first or second round.
Yeah.
But my winner was, of course, Sean Strickland over Adesanya. That was, I think it's hard not to pick that one, but I remember sitting down to watch that fight with my friends and actually saying, it's not about if Izzy gets it done, it's about when and how.
Yeah,
like I remember saying that, like, there's no way he doesn't beat this guy. You know, he's a kickboxer, whatever, 85-0 or 85-1 as a kickboxer. This guy cannot lose in the feet to a guy like Sean Strickland, and then Strickland just puts the pace on him and shocks the world. Like, it was insane.
It was a big shock. Yeah. I mean, for sure. I did not think there was any ounce in my body that Sean was going to win that fight at all. And my only 1% chance was if he grabbed him and showed some grappling that we haven't really seen very often from him. I remember saying that too. Like, I think he definitely shocked the world. I think it was a massive, massive fight. And everyone was like, what just happened after it happened? For sure. As it was going on, they were like, what is going on? How is this happening? And yeah, I mean, it was super impressive. And I'm excited to see if he can keep doing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think we talked about earlier, I think he surprised himself a little bit. And I think he might have found himself a little bit of confidence. And I'm excited to see what he can do with that going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Knockout of the year. This is going to be another fun one. You had it as a runner-up in the last one. This is going to be Sean O'Malley knocking out Aljamain Sterling. Yeah, like you said, not many people were expecting this one. I think how he did it, the skill, like the setup, where he did that front kick, step back, boom, and then how fast that left hand was, just dropped him and then just pounced on him. And the ref probably could have stopped it earlier. He was trying to scramble out of it. The ground and pound was beautiful too, how he was like avoiding the getting grabbed, moving around. And I think the whole finish was just super like beautiful. I think it was just poetry in motion. And I think getting that belt for Sean is something that he's dreamed of for a long time. And this knockout definitely meant a lot for him. And yeah, I think definitely the fact that nobody was really expecting it stood out for me too. The fact that Aljamain is one of the greatest featherweights of all time, or bantamweights of all time, maybe the greatest bantamweight of all time. And yeah, I think that all of that surrounding it gives it to me for sure.
Yeah, I had this one on my list as well. It was very Conor Aldo-esque, you know, just the hype and all that surrounding it. I agree. It was on my list for KO of the year as well. It wasn't my top pick, but it's hard to deny a guy like Sean getting his chance, becoming the champ, doing the things he said he was going to do, you know, and like you said, that was executed perfectly. That pull counter was just amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. The stoppage, that the controversial, fantastic finish from him. The way you're right, he handled himself on the ground was awesome. I also had, and again, it could be recency bias, but the Emmett versus Bryce Mitchell finish, just the devastating power that went into that shot. Like how it was. When you talk about a KO, we're not talking about, like, there was no controversy in the stoppage there. It was, you know, like, we're talking about a sport where if there wasn't a guy in the cage with him, the other guy is dead. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, crazy. Like, so that that stuck out where I was like, oh my goodness, this has to be a contender for KO of the year. But my final pick was Adesanya over Pereira. Just because of all the build-up and all the hype and everything that went into that fight. Like, all the years of, you know, their kickboxing feuds and Alex's kid and their first fight, and Alex coming up, making his way through with eyes on the target, fighting Adesanya, coming up. Adesanya hasn't seen a challenge that really he hasn't been able to figure out in years. Comes up, takes a loss to Pereira. Everyone's like, wow, I can't believe this. Comes back, sets it up, gets that overhand. Like, and I've seen breakdowns where, you know, he talks about how that was there, how his coaches talked about how that shot over top of the left side of his ear is there. It was just beautiful. And then, you know, the arrows into him afterwards, a theatrical finish was, it was beautiful. I thought, in my opinion, that was the KO of the year, and sweet victory for Adesanya.
Yeah. Another runner-up for me was Aspinall over Pavlovich. That was a great one as well. And I think that also, like, was one that many people weren't expecting. They were probably expecting Aspinall to, like, out MMA him. or whether it's grappling or piecing him up and staying on the outside. I don't think many people are expecting him to just come in and one shot, boom, knock him out. But that was super impressive as well. That was on my list.
Yeah, definitely. And Pavlovich was like this tank rolling through the heavyweight division that everyone was thinking no one could stop him. And then for Aspinall to finish him was insane. You're right.
That
absolutely.
Fast too.
Yeah.
Submission of the year. This one for me, I think a lot of people might go with like the most technically perfect or best setup or coolest maybe. I went with most dominant, maybe easiest, maybe making it look easy.
I know where you're going with this.
Or even just like kind of a mic drop moment and I'm the GOAT. I'm going to go with John Jones beating Cyril Gane with a mounted guillotine. It was easy. It was like there was no effort that took from him. It was like, this is my sport, get out of here. And it was just like there at the top of the game. Cyril Gane was there for the heavyweight belt of the world in MMA. And he just got manhandled, and it was the easiest guillotine maybe one that I've ever seen. And it was, John Jones is one of the best fighters of all time for sure. And he showed it with that over one of the other best fighters in the world right now.
It was absolutely insane. You're totally right. Like mic drop moment was exactly that, especially with I think it was a 3-year layoff that John had where he put on all that size and everyone was speculating, like, oh, is he going to be able to, John gets hit. He's not going to be able to take some of those shots at heavyweight. He's not going to be able to handle these guys the same way he did. But just showed up and went, hold my beer.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
Watch this. He could have fought again that same night. And
easily.
Would have been totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That was that again. We're on the same page with a lot of these. I think a lot of people are, but that one was on there for me, just because of the absolute dominant performance. We shouldn't have expected anything less of John Jones, but for some reason, you doubt him.
Honestly, I was giving Cyril the benefit of the doubt. I was hoping for his own sake that he's been like that. He's like one of the best grapplers in the world too. I was just hoping that he had what it takes to at least defend not necessarily easy, but at least defend himself. I think how easy it was for John just kind of shows that Cyril does have levels and to work on when it comes to grappling for sure. I was just hoping for Cyril's case, and I did give it to him. Like in the predictions and everything, I was like, he's gotta not be able to just be manhandled, right? Like he's got to at least be able to put it in a fight. But yeah, John made it look easy.
Yeah, I do remember listening to a fighter who fought at heavyweight talking about training with John, and he said that he's like, dude, he used to train with John back in the day, and he's like, man, he would throw like heavyweights at the time, and he's fighting a light heavyweight. He would throw us around. He's like, wow. John is incredibly strong. His wrestling is beyond what people are imagining, and he kind of predicted it, but. I thought that with Gane's speed and footwork and his kickboxing skills, I thought maybe he was going to be able to. That's what I was worried about, is that John can get hit. I thought, oof, man, you get up to heavyweight, like all it takes is one shot, and these guys will put you to sleep. But John just said, no thanks, I'll take your neck.
Yeah, exactly.
But my submission of the year, and again, a lot of it was due to why she was the female fighter of the year for me, was Grasso over Shevchenko. Talk about shocking the MMA community with the submission that I don't think any of us saw coming. Like, she's beautiful boxing. She was doing so well. They're boxing that fight against Shevchenko, and then just all she needed was that slip of the back. And once the back was there, she took it and bang, set it up, and it was a beautiful submission. So I had to give it to Grasso. I also had Yair Rodriguez over Josh Emmett on my list as well.
That was a sweet one too.
Yeah, just someone you didn't see, setting up that submission either. You thought you were probably going to get the TKO finish, if anything.
Exactly, yeah. So. Yeah, I think Alexa Grasso is definitely a good pick, especially because of like how skilled that was in that moment, that reaction time as she's spinning to be able to jump on her back like that and take it. Like, it was super impressive, and I think the magnitude of who she did it against and the moment and everything like that, and how well she was doing in that fight too. I think definitely it just shows a lot of all around MMA skill, and that submission was nasty against someone who's shown how dominant they are too over and over again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then the last one, we saved the best for last. We got fight of the year. This was a hard one to pick against what most people were taking. I mean, I was looking. There was a couple different options. I had Dan Hooker and Jalen Turner as an option. I had Yair and Josh Emmett as an option. I had Max Holloway and I forget. I think it was Arnold Allen as an option.
Oh yeah.
Those are all options for me. But my top pick was Islam Makhachev and Alex Volkanovski, number one. I mean, come on, like that was a war, a 5-round war, and both guys had such good moments in that fight. The fact that Alex went up that weight class and put on that kind of performance against someone who's shown such dominance. Alex put up more of a fight than anyone who's ever, well, not who's ever fought Islam, but who's fought Islam during this title reign. And yeah, I mean, it was super fun to watch, and I was on my toes the whole time. So
yeah, I actually picked the exact same. I had Jalen Turner and Dan Hooker as my runner-up, just because of what a like true depiction of gladiator style mixed martial arts. Like Dan Hooker took that head kick. I thought, how is anybody on this planet able to eat a head kick like that and come back and win the fight? Broken arm, the whole bit.
The blood in his hair.
Like the blonde hair, blood. He's got the tribal tattoos. I'm like, this is like, you got to show somebody a fight. Like here's MMA. That's a fight you're showing them, right? But just because of the magnitude of who Volk and Islam are, that's why I had to give it to them as well. Like you're totally right. Islam was the freaking lightweight boogeyman that we didn't see anybody that could even challenge the guy. Like I wasn't sure going into it. And Volk's one of my favorite fighters, so I was cheering heavily for him in this fight, and he came up and put such a good performance on. And like a lot of people, it was a controversial win. Like a lot of people had Volk winning that fight.
Agreed.
You can watch. It was so back and forth. It was such a good fight. Like I totally agree. Fight of the year for sure, hands down. It's hard with him coming back and getting that KO or Volk in the second fight. It kind of taints it a bit, but that fight was absolutely amazing. Like best fight of the year by far.
I don't think there was many other 5-round fights that at the end I was like, I don't know who won. Yeah. I can't think of another one that at the end I was like, I don't know who won. Even Alexa Grasso and Shevchenko was further apart, in my opinion, which was a draw, than that Volkanovski and Islam fight was. So yeah, I think just how even it was, how like obviously how high level both guys were, just two of the best pound for pound fighters in the sport right now. They were 1 and 2 at the time, I think. So yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely insane. Like I don't know, that was another one, and I think it's because certain fighters I get more invested with when I watch, so I find myself like up off the couch screaming and yelling like, "Come on, do this!" That was one of those fights for me, absolutely. Like those guys went to war.
Sweet. Well, that's all we got for the awards, end of the year awards. Thank you everyone for watching. If you watched this far, please make sure to leave a comment with your choices. If you agree or disagree with us, leave a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on so you can know when the next one's coming. We also got some giveaways running on our Instagram right now. Christian and I will be back in the new year to continue after the big cards, after all the cards, talking about our breakdowns, our predictions for the next ones. So thank you, Christian. This was fun.